Todd O'Hare is not just some normal Montana guy. I gotta tell you, so you've seen the show Yellowstone? It takes place in Paradise Valley. The O'Hare family goes back 6 generations in Paradise Valley. So he's actually a cowboy, his kids rodeo and so forth, and we're glad to have him leading the charge of the Montana Chamber of Commerce. Well, Todd, thank you for the warm welcome to everybody here, and a warm welcome to all of you to the On the Rise Summit. First of all, thanks for making time. You are here, you're busy, but you've chosen to spend this day. I think it's a day of investment, frankly, that I hope you will find very rewarding for yourselves personally. A big thank you as well to First Security Bank for sponsoring the breakfast. We give them a round of applause, please. Thank you. And some of you heard from Governor Gianforte last night at the opening events. He'll be back today, so we'll have the governor of Montana, actually part of this event. We also have our Secretary of State here today of Montana, Christy Jacobson, right over here. Christy, thanks for coming here. And we also have our Commissioner of Securities and Insurance, Troy Downing, here as well. Troy is right here. Troy was with Yahoo for many years as well, so comes with a good private sector background. But Montana truly is on the rise. As you drove here this morning, it's yet another one of these mornings where Montana is showing off. I love this time of year, early June. It's the green valleys, it's the white mountains, it's the blue skies, it's that crisp air. There's no wonder why so many love to call Montana home. I literally am standing here in a place I used to shoot gophers when I was a kid growing up here in the Gallatin Valley. I love this facility, it's wonderful, but I am not making this up. We'd be out here shooting gophers in the spring, then we just go a little further over to the west and we fish Middle Creek over there. And I will tell you, in the fall, when the World Series was on, is some of the best brown trout fishing in the valley, but I just let you know one of my secrets here, my fishing holes as well. I remember growing up here in Montana, specifically actually in the Gallatin Valley. I remember back in the early 70s, Mom and Dad loaded me up with my 2 younger sisters. The 3 kids got in the Griswold Buick station wagon. There's some heads nodding. Remember the Griswold Buick or Griswold station wagon, literally with the wood veneer on the side of it. And we loaded up when Mom and Dad wanted to show the kids Disneyland. So we drove down to Disneyland. We pulled up, and we had our Montana plates. This is back in the early 70s. And this woman came out of, it was like a Motel 6 where we were staying, and she saw the Montana plates. I was kind of off by myself. And she came up to me, and she said, "You're from Montana?" I said, "I am." And it was this very condescending, "I feel sorry for you" kind of look in her eyes. Like I was from, the poverty of Appalachia or something. I mean, I was waiting for her to say, "Do you have running water? Do you have electricity? Do you have movies up there in Montana?" But instead she said, these were literally her first words, she says, "Do you ride a lot?" That was her first question. Do you ride a lot? And I thought, I wonder if she means horses. And so I says, "Actually, I do," and this is a true story. Just the week before, I'd been on horseback with a buddy of mine. We were just east of Bozeman up around Bear Canyon, and we ran into a bear. And the bear stood up, the ears of the horse perked forward, and I told her that story. Her eyes got about that big around, and I confirmed every stereotype about Montana in that moment, you'd imagine. But you contrast the conversations about Montana back, let's say, in the early 70s versus today. Today, as you know, as I serve the state of Montana, the U.S. Senate, I go back and forth to Washington, D.C. almost every week from Montana. Now, when you sit on an airplane or you visit somebody in a coffee shop or you see somebody in a restaurant and they find out you're from Montana, it's a very, very different response. It's no longer the "I'm sorry you're from Montana" from the 70s. It's, "Oh, I want to move there. I want to live there. We love vacationing there. You live in the greatest state." The shift that we have seen over the course of the last several decades has been profound. And I will tell you, I was fly fishing on the Gallatin River before Brad Pitt ruined it for the rest of us. That's how I grew up, with a Browning Siloflex rod, an automatic reel, a wicker creel, with Grandpa in irrigation boots, fishing some of the great streams of southwest Montana as a kid, thinking there was only one fly needed in your fly box, and that was a bitch crick or maybe a woolly bugger, and that's all you needed. That's how I grew up. Montana has changed a lot, and in many ways for the better, because when I graduated from Montana State University, you couldn't find a job in Montana. I was an engineer. I had to leave the state. I remember getting on a plane, flying to my first job with Procter & Gamble out to the Midwest. I was flying over the Beartooth between Bozeman and Denver, headed for the Midwest. I'd been to all those lakes in the Beartooth. I literally had tears rolling down my cheeks as this 21-year-old from Bozeman was having to leave the state that he loved so much. And I said to myself, someday I'm gonna find a way back, because I wanna make sure my kids get to grow up the same way that I got to grow up. So I wanna thank so many of you here today who are helping make that dream a reality now for Montanans that can stay here if they so choose. Montana is showing the nation what success looks like. Today, we're going to showcase how Montana businesses and entrepreneurs are creating jobs, literally transforming industries, and building for the future. We're also going to hear how Montana is an emerging center for innovation on everything from quantum computing, which in many ways will define this next century as it relates to what happens with computers, as well as bioscience and cryptocurrency. And we know what's best for building jobs. And listen, if you think that Washington, D.C. has the answers, you're badly mistaken. The answers are going to be found at the states. We're seeing the competition between the states, just as our founding fathers intended. They never dreamed that Washington would become as big and powerful as it is today. It was always about federalism, always about returning the powers back to the states. Let the states compete. As they said, they'd be the centers for innovation, to try out the new ideas, and to have bold, courageous governors and legislatures putting policies in place that will drive innovation, incentives to invest and to grow jobs. We know in Montana what's best. I can tell you what's going on here in Montana. When I fly back home to Montana, I feel like you just kind of breathe freedom. When you fly back to Washington, it's a different story, isn't it? And we know that a balanced energy portfolio is going to ensure that we keep prices low and grow more jobs. We've all seen what's happened with energy security since Russia's attack on Ukraine. And it's a reminder we cannot go down the same path that the Europeans have gone down. That's a wake-up call to America and ensure we have a balanced energy portfolio. Germany is in trouble. The Europeans are in trouble because they rapidly started shutting down important parts of baseload energy in their energy portfolio. They put their dependencies on Vladimir Putin. Putin has weaponized energy, and it's a real serious problem for Europe and for the world. We're seeing spiking energy costs. We need to continue to ensure we keep balance on our energy portfolio. We should be expanding energy infrastructure, not closing down production. We should be reducing barriers for natural resources, for mining, for manufacturing, so we can support the critical supply chains needed for national defense, healthcare, high tech, and more. Do you know it's taken 37 years to try to get a copper mine permitted up in northwest Montana? If we want to have a renewable energy portfolio in the future, you've got to have these critical mining operations here. Otherwise, we will be dependent on Russia and China, and they will become the OPEC of the renewable energy portfolio in the future. Right now, we're seeing soaring costs for homeowners. Listen, I grew up in the home building business. My mom and dad were home builders right here in Bozeman. My dad started building houses in the Gallup Valley in 1972. I worked construction jobs during my summers, put myself through school at MSU. I've watched what's going on with building prices and real estate prices in our state since I was a little kid. It's been the topic of our conversations at the breakfast table going to my earliest memories. But instead of supporting timber production and healthy forest management to reduce the cost of materials, we've seen folks back in Washington content to let the forest burn. We either manage our forest or they manage us. So one of the battles we're fighting back in Washington. But thank God we've got the common sense here in Montana to support jobs, support families, support our communities. And that's why Montana is on the rise. We are now a hub for high tech because of a culture of entrepreneurship, of work ethic, as you heard the governor talk about last night. You take these ranch kids from some of these Class C communities in Montana. I tell these kids that come back to Washington from our smallest high schools, the smaller the high school, the better the students. There is a work ethic and a set of values there that are critical for the future of this country. And lastly, we have this quality of life that is second to none. When Greg Gianforte and I were in the cloud computing business together for some 12 years, our recruiting website was www.iloveithere.com. You'd go to that URL, up would pop the open positions we had. By the way, if you go to iloveithere.com, it goes to oracle.com because Oracle bought us and they own the website now. But anyway, once upon a time, it was our recruiting website. And we used this quality of life as an incredible advantage to attract the best and brightest talent in Montana and around the world to grow a world-class software business. Let's not forget our natural resource economy and our ag economy are the foundation of what Montana has been built on. We know that supporting our farmers, our ranchers, our natural resource economy is where it starts. But now we can build on that. We're seeing this boom in new industries, bioscience, cryptocurrency, photonics, because we know that innovation and not the heavy hand of government will help us drive us into the future. So with that, we're gonna kick off our first panel.